She had earned $95 million in prize money, but Serena Williams knew it should have been double that. When she discovered young female athletes were still fighting the same pay battles she'd faced decades earlier, she launched a covert campaign that would either revolutionize sports or destroy her reputation forever. Welcome to the story Gook. Before we get into this wild story about secret meetings, corporate espionage, and how one tennis legend decided to take on the entire sports industry, drop a comment and tell me what city you're watching from. And if you think it's about time female athletes got paid what they deserve, hit that subscribe button. This story will open your eyes to just how dirty the sports business really is. It was a Tuesday morning in January 2024 when Serena Williams got the phone call that changed everything. On the other end was Emma Rodriguez, a 22-year-old tennis player from California who had just won her first WTA tournament. She should have been celebrating, but instead she was crying. "Ms. Williams, I don't know who else to call," Emma sobbed. "I just found out that the guy who lost in the first round of the men's tournament last week made more money than I did for winning the whole thing." Serena felt that familiar fire in her chest, the same anger that had fueled her through 2 decades of fighting not just opponents on the court, but an entire system that seemed designed to keep women down. "How much are we talking about, Emma?" Serena asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer would make her sick. "I got $125,000 for winning. He got $180,000 for losing his first match. The tournament director told me I should be grateful because women's tennis doesn't bring in as much money." Emma's voice cracked. "But, Ms. Williams, our final had 3 times the TV audience his match did." That's when Serena realized nothing had really changed. Sure, the big tournaments like Wimbledon and the US Open had equal prize money now, largely because of battles she and Venus had fought years earlier. But the smaller tournaments, where young players earned their living and built their careers, were still treating women like second-class citizens. She spent the rest of that day making phone calls. What she discovered made her angrier than she'd been since her playing days. Serena had always been more than just an athlete. Her Harvard business degree and years of dealing with contracts had taught her to follow the money. So that's exactly what she did. Working with a team of accountants and lawyers she trusted, she began secretly analyzing prize money distribution across professional tennis. What they found was systematic discrimination that went way beyond what most people realized. In men's tournaments, even early round losers often made more than women's champions. Sponsorship deals for female athletes averaged 60% less than identical deals for men, even when the women had better performance records and higher social media followings. But the real kicker came when they dug into tournament contracts with broadcasters and sponsors. Time and time again, they found evidence that women's events were actually generating more revenue than men's events. But somehow, that money wasn't making it to the female athletes. "Look at this." Her lead investigator, Michael Chen, showed her a stack of confidential documents. The French Open women's final last year had 40% higher ratings than the men's final, but the women's prize pool was still 20% smaller for the whole tournament. "How is that possible?" Serena asked. "Creative accounting. The tournament organizers are basically stealing money that should go to female athletes and using it to subsidize men's prizes and administrative costs." That's when Serena realized this wasn't just about tennis. If they were doing this in her sport, they were probably doing it everywhere. Serena knew she couldn't fight this battle alone, so she started reaching out to other retired female athletes who might want to join her cause. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Mia Hamm, the soccer legend, was in immediately. "I've been waiting 30 years for someone with your platform to take this on seriously," she told Serena during a secret meeting in Miami. Basketball star Sue Bird joined next, bringing with her a network of WNBA players who had been fighting pay equity battles for years. Then came Olympic swimmers, gymnasts, softball players, all with the same stories of being paid a fraction of what their male counterparts earned, despite equal or better performance. But they needed more than just athlete testimonies. They needed hard evidence of systematic discrimination, and they needed it from the inside. That's when Serena made a decision that would change everything. She was going to go undercover. Using connections from her business ventures, Serena created a fake consulting company called Sports Analytics Solutions. The cover story was perfect. They were a data analysis firm that helped sports organizations optimize revenue and fan engagement. What tournament directors and sports executives didn't know was that Sports Analytics Solutions was actually a front operation designed to get access to their internal financial records and decision-making processes. Serena hired a team of actual data analysts and researchers, but their real job wasn't to help these organizations make more money. It was to document exactly how they were systematically discriminating against female athletes. The operation took months to set up. They created fake references, built a professional website, and even rented office space in Chicago to maintain their cover. Serena, operating under the name Serena Williams, personally pitched their services to dozens of major sports organizations. And it worked. Within 6 months, Sports Analytics Solutions had consulting contracts with the International Tennis Federation, major golf tournaments, Olympic organizing committees, and professional soccer leagues around the world. What Serena and her team discovered was even worse than they had imagined. The discrimination wasn't just casual or unconscious. It was deliberate and coordinated. Internal emails revealed tournament directors actively discussing how to keep women's prize money low. "We need to maintain the traditional structure," wrote one ITF executive. "If we pay women equally, we'll have to deal with demands from every other sport." Sponsorship contracts contained clauses specifically designed to pay female athletes less. Marketing executives admitted in recorded meetings that they preferred male athletes not because they performed better or brought in more fans, but because men are easier to work with and don't complain about money as much. The most damning evidence came from television contracts. Broadcasters were actually paying higher fees for rights to women's events in many sports, but sports organizations were hiding this fact and using the money to inflate men's prize pools. "They're literally stealing from female athletes," Serena explained to her core team during a clandestine meeting in her Miami office. "And they've been doing it so systematically that most people think it's normal." But gathering evidence was just the first step. Now they had to figure out how to use it. Serena knew that simply releasing the information wouldn't be enough. Sports organizations had been dealing with equal pay criticism for decades by making small symbolic changes while keeping the fundamental system intact. This time was going to be different. They were going to hit them where it really hurt, their wallets and their reputations. Working with lawyers who specialized in discrimination cases, they developed a three-pronged attack. First, they would file lawsuits in multiple countries simultaneously, making it impossible for sports organizations to fight them one at a time. Second, they would launch a coordinated media campaign revealing the evidence they had gathered. Third, they would organize a boycott of tournaments and sponsors that refused to implement immediate equal pay. But the most important part of their strategy was surprise. If the sports establishment knew what was coming, they would have time to prepare counterattacks and PR campaigns. So everything had to happen at once, like a precision military operation. The date they chose was March 8th, 2025, International Women's Day. It seemed appropriate. 2 weeks before the launch, Serena got a call that made her blood run cold. It was from ITF President James Morrison, someone she had known for years. "Serena, we need to talk." His voice was tense. "There are some concerning rumors floating around about research being done into our financial practices. I thought you should know in case someone approaches you for comment." Her cover had been blown. Someone, somewhere, had figured out what Sports Analytics Solutions was really doing. "I appreciate the heads up, James," she replied, keeping her voice steady. "You know I've always supported transparency in sports. Of course, I just hope that if anyone is looking into these matters, they understand how complex tournament economics really are. There are good reasons for current prize structures." After hanging up, Serena called an emergency meeting with her core team. They had a choice: abandon the operation and hope their covers held, or accelerate the timeline and launch everything immediately. If we wait, they'll have time to hide evidence and prepare their defenses, Michael Chen pointed out. But if we go now, we might not be ready. Serena thought about Emma Rodriguez and all the other young female athletes who were being cheated out of money they had earned. She thought about her own career and how much harder she'd had to fight than male players with half her talent. We go tomorrow, she decided. Ready or not. March 7th, 2025, turned out to be the most chaotic day in modern sports history. At 6 a.m. Eastern Time, lawsuits were filed simultaneously in New York, London, Paris, and Sydney against major sports organizations. Each lawsuit contained hundreds of pages of internal documents, emails, and financial records proving systematic discrimination against female athletes. At 9 a.m., Serena Williams held a press conference at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. Standing behind a podium with dozens of female athletes from every major sport, she revealed her identity as the leader of the equal pay investigation. For the past year, I've been working undercover to expose something that every female athlete knows, but has been afraid to prove, she began. The sports industry has been systematically stealing money from women and using it to overpay men. Today, we're providing the evidence to prove it. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Within hours, #EqualPayNow was trending worldwide on social media. News outlets across the globe were running stories about the sports equality bombshell. Stock prices for major sports companies began dropping as investors realized the potential legal liability. But the most powerful moment came when Serena played audio recordings from sports executives discussing their discrimination policies. "We can't let them think they deserve equal treatment," one tournament director was heard saying. "Give an inch on this, and next thing you know, they'll want equal everything." The sports establishment didn't take long to fight back. Within 24 hours, armies of lawyers and PR professionals were working to discredit Serena and her evidence. They accused her of illegal industrial espionage and claimed the documents were taken out of context. Some executives suggested she was just trying to generate publicity for her business ventures. The personal attacks were vicious. Sports talk radio hosts questioned her motives, her methods, and even her legacy as a player. Maybe if she hadn't been so difficult to work with during her career, she wouldn't be so bitter now, one commentator suggested. But for every attack, there were 10 voices supporting her. Current and former female athletes from around the world began sharing their own stories of pay discrimination. Male athletes, many of them for the first time, publicly acknowledged that their female counterparts deserved equal compensation. The most powerful support came from an unexpected source: sponsors. Major companies that had been pressured by sports organizations to pay women less began revealing their own evidence of discrimination. Nike, Adidas, and other major brands announced they would immediately begin paying equal endorsement fees to male and female athletes with comparable achievements. The legal battles were expected to last for years, but the economic pressure was immediate and devastating. Tournament attendance began dropping as fans boycotted events that refused to implement equal pay. Television ratings for men's events plummeted while viewership for women's competitions soared. Within 6 months, sports organizations began reaching out privately to negotiate settlements. The writing was on the wall. They were going to lose in court, and the longer they fought, the more it was going to cost them. The final settlement was announced on September 15, 2025. The International Tennis Federation, along with dozens of other sports organizations, agreed to implement immediate equal prize money for all events. They also established a $500 million fund to compensate female athletes who had been underpaid over the previous decade. But money was only part of the victory. The agreement included requirements for transparent financial reporting, independent oversight of prize money distribution, and mandatory equal pay policies for all future events. The effects of Serena's equal pay campaign went far beyond sports. The evidence she had gathered inspired investigations into pay equity across all industries. Companies that had been discriminating against women in their executive compensation packages suddenly found themselves facing similar lawsuits. The Serena Standard became the benchmark for equal pay activism in professional settings. Her methodical approach, gathering evidence, building coalitions, and striking with precision, was copied by advocacy groups around the world. For young female athletes, the impact was immediate and life-changing. Emma Rodriguez, the tennis player whose phone call had started everything, received a check for $400,000, her share of back pay from tournaments that had been underpaying women for years. "You saved my career," Emma told Serena during a ceremony honoring the equal pay victory. "I was ready to quit and get a regular job because I couldn't afford to keep playing. Now I can focus on tennis instead of wondering how I'm going to pay rent." The Equal Pay Activist campaign taught the world that sometimes the biggest battles are fought not on playing fields, but in boardrooms and courthouses. Serena Williams proved that retirement from competition doesn't mean retirement from fighting for what's right. She showed that true champions don't just win games, they use their platforms to change systems that hold others back. By going undercover and risking her reputation, she exposed decades of discrimination and forced an entire industry to confront its biases. The young female athletes competing today owe their equal prize money to someone who was willing to fight battles that had nothing to do with her own career or bank account. Serena Williams could have stayed quiet, enjoyed her retirement, and counted her millions. Instead, she chose to wage war against injustice. So now I ask you, have you ever seen unfair treatment in your workplace or community? Have you ever had to choose between staying quiet and speaking up for what's right? Share your story in the comments below and tell us what city you're watching from. Because at the Story Gook, we believe that the greatest victories happen when champions use their success to lift up others. Sometimes the most important matches are fought not for personal glory, but for justice and equality. Thank you for watching. If this story of fighting for equal pay and standing up to discrimination inspired you, subscribe to the Story Gook for more incredible stories that remind us why some battles are worth fighting. We'll see you in the next story. And until then, remember, true champions aren't just measured by what they win for themselves, but by what they make possible for others. Sometimes the greatest serve is the one that aces injustice.